All right, good evening. A very important day tomorrow, the 18th of April 2023. The Supreme Court of India will be hearing final arguments in a clutch of petitions that stand before that five-judge bench of the Supreme Court, asking the court to legalize and legally recognize same-sex marriage in India. It will be a massive leap in the rights and in creating a more equal world for members of the LGBTQI community, who will then be able to marry, they will be able to will their property to each other, they will be able to raise children, adopt children, have joint bank accounts, have a say in each other's medical treatment, things that heterosexual couples take completely for granted, which our same-sex brothers and sisters do not have access to. All of that could change if the Supreme Court tomorrow decides, the Supreme Court, after hearing the arguments tomorrow, decides in favor of same-sex marriage in India. But we've had a new development today, which is the central government has filed another statement before the court, an affidavit, and it says a few things. Let me take you through what the central government has said. First of all, it has said that the idea of same-sex marriage is an urban and elitist view, and it does not represent rural, semi-rural populations. And when making laws or changing laws, the government has to take into consideration the rural population and the semi-urban population as well, and they don't feel this way. And it says it has to take into mind all religious dominations. It's brought in religion and said the Hindu Marriage Act and the Muslim Marriage Act necessarily need a heterosexual biological male and female in order for the contract or the agreement of marriage to take place at all. And so same-sex couples will not actually, it will not work. That's not tenable. It's also, the government has asked the court to refrain from changing the laws in this fashion. And it has sort of reminded the court that it is Parliament that needs to make these laws, because it can take into consideration all the various groups of people it represents and make laws accordingly. In the meantime, the NCPCR, and this is important, this is the National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights in India, has also filed an intervening application before the Supreme Court, raising concerns about what will happen to children if they're being raised by same-sex couples. It's basically said that as per the Juvenile Justice Act in India, a single man is not allowed to adopt a female child, a baby girl. And what will happen if a same-sex couple of two men then adopt a baby girl? That goes against that particular law. It is also said that giving children to be raised by people who are already facing challenges in society will be like experimenting with those children, and it's not in the interest of those children to be treated as subjects of an experiment. It is also raised, and this is a really odd one, right? It is said that children being raised by same-sex parents will have limited exposure to gender roles, and so their understanding of gender roles and gender identity will be limited. Another point is that the Delhi Commission for the Protection of Child Rights has supported the adoption of children by same-sex couples. So these are all of the things that have happened right now. We know that the Indian Psychiatric Society has supported same-sex couples as well. And we have a representative joining us right now. And I'm really glad we got this guest on board today. So Professor Dr. Amrit Pattojoshi is one of the people who worked on that statement, which I thought was brilliantly put together, where it dealt with mental health issues, and how actually legalizing same-sex marriage will reduce the mental health issues within the community and actually create a more equal world. The Professor Doctor is the president of the Indian Psychiatric Society, Odisha State Branch. He's the Honorable Secretary, IPS East Zone. He joins us right now. He's also a teacher. And that's really important because he deals with young people on a regular basis. Doc, thank you so much for joining me on this conversation. I'm going to actually ask you to rebut the arguments that the government has placed before the court. The first argument is that this idea of same-sex couples wanting to get married is elitist and urban and does not represent people from rural and semi-urban India. Do you agree with that? What is
First of all, the government has to come out with statistics. Have they done a survey on this? Have they found out the percentages? To talk of something which is absolutely, which term is normal in terms of the way they feel. Calling it elitist, calling it urbanist is a little tough thing to accept. Why? I'll tell you. My arguments are based on certain things. Now, when do people come out? If they are, if they think they are of this different gender, or if they are homosexuals. It is a transition period, maybe from the age of 14, 15, around 25, 30. And this is the stage when people are in colleges, universities, new jobs, new places. And if you look at the whole concept of India, we have a rural, we have semi-urban and urban. Now, most of the job opportunities are in the urban areas. Most of the universities are centered in the urban areas. And the whole education system is based on the urban areas, not on the rural areas. So even if you talk it as an urbanist culture, and if you look at people coming out, people, accepting it, and people, come talking with everybody, it's more in terms of the Insta, more in terms of WhatsApp, Facebook. If you look at the newer trends, that is mainly used by the urban population, if you call them urban population. But now times have also changed. People are sitting in their homes in a small village and making reels. So calling them urbanist, elitist is wrong, because even if you're urban, even if you're elite, you should have access to equal rights. That's what I tell.
Yes.
It's not just that the rural people should have their rights. So basing is giving a statement not based on facts, not based on science, just based on hearsay is unacceptable.
So your argument right now is that the government is making statements that are not based on facts and based entirely on hearsay before the Supreme Court?
I think we want facts. I'm not telling it's not based on facts, because the statement we gave out based on science and facts.
You had argued in your statement that recognizing same-sex marriage legally will actually reduce the mental health issues in society. Could you tell us how?
The basic thing is, if you look at laws basically play an essential role in shaping attitudes. Attitudes will change the stigma, the discrimination associated with it. The minority stress of being a minority, India is a place where a lot of just compare Article 377. The moment the Supreme Court gave the decision, a general sense of, well-being was there in this community. And recently we did, a survey was done. I was going through that study where more than around 5,900 people were talked. After the change of the LGBTQ, what was the reaction? It was not just the LGBTQ population, it was the other population also which spoke that 90% of the people told that the mental health of most of them improved. Anxiety, the stress, the depression, suicidality, and substance abuse. If you look at the 5 common things which this population suffer from, there was an improvement. People started discussing all these things. Schools started having, drawing competition based on LGBTQ themes. That's where the changes started. Treating people as equal is very, very important. And we as a society need to learn to respect the different people, if we call them different.
The central government has, yes.
So
and when we begin to respect everybody, that's when they feel seen and heard, and they're no longer suffering silently and hiding their identity, which leads to mental health issues.
I think that's the most important thing. And we cannot just sit down and tell that culture speaks like this. The times are changing, the needs are changing, the thought processes are changing, everything is changing. You cannot just hold on to archaical or things and tell that this is what we've learned. We've changed a lot of things. We've changed the way the system works. We've changed the way of parenting has changed. Husband-wife relationships have changed. Everything has evolved. With time, things have to evolve. We cannot just sit down and tell this is what it was, so it should be that what it has to happen. So that has to change actually.
The central government has also called upon religion, saying that within the Hindu Marriage Act and within the Muslim Marriage Act, this sort of thing is not recognized. What is your response to that?
Well, I'll speak as an individual capacity. The Muslim marriage law was also changed. Nikah was, the whole system, talaq and all was, people.
Yes. Triple talaq was banned. Yes.
Banned. Yes. So a lot of things has happened. You're calling for uniformity. You cannot hold on to certain things for when it fulfills the way you think and reject it when you think it is not according to your thought processes. So laws should be universal. It should bring in equality, and I think that's where we should look at.
I want to ask you about a couple of other things. We've had the NCPCR, which is the National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights, put out a statement saying that allowing adoption of same-sex couples will endanger children, and this is a really serious thing for the Commission of Child Rights to actually say. Now, one of their arguments is that a single man in our country right now, as per the Juvenile Justice Act, is not allowed to adopt a female child or a girl baby, how can we allow same-sex couples to adopt girl children? That's in violation of that act. Do you believe that there is a risk there?
Now we'll talk it in the other way. Why? I'll tell you. A single male is not allowed to adopt a female child, but a single male is allowed to adopt a male child.
Male baby, yes.
So if there's a couple of two males are there together who are married, they can easily adopt a male child. Let's accept that first of all. Let's not look at the other aspect. People are unsafe everywhere. I have seen males are unsafe when a female is there. But first let us accept that they can. This is not a reason why you will not allow somebody to adopt. If you are allowing a single parent to adopt, why can't two people of the same sex cannot adopt a child? So the whole argument does not stay. Now, whether they can adopt a male child or a female child should be looked up afterwards. With time, with survey, with research, we can move on to the safety, unsafety. I have seen people where somebody is unsafe in their own biological parents also. The abuse, the assault, the sexual abuse. We see a lot of things. Let us not get into all those gory details and things like that. But if somebody, now we see a lot of abuse in orphanages. We see a lot of abuses in orphanages. So a caring, a loving, a person who is giving security to a child, is it better, or keeping a child with a caretaker, 20, 30 child who are abused repeatedly? That is important. I'm not telling that orphanages are there, but things happen. Things happen everywhere. It is our duty to create laws, to give the safety network and make ways that if something like this happens, it gets reported, noticed, caught and punished as soon as possible.
The other argument that has been put forward by the Commission for Protection of Child Rights is that giving children to be raised by people who are having issues in society will be exposing those children to a struggle for the sake of experimentation, and that is violation of the rights of those children. Now, maybe the Commission is considering the fact that even though it is legalized in our country, we know that same-sex couples face a lot of discrimination, they face bullying. It's likely children from these families will also face, which you've also noted in your statement, will also face bullying and teasing and discrimination as well. Now, the Commission for Child Rights believes that children should not be put through that. What is your response?
Now, I should laugh at this. Why, I'll tell you. Now, we'll tell that females should not go out after 9 o'clock because they will be bullied, they will be molested, they will be done like this. It is our duty to create an environment where everybody can remain happy, contented, and at peace with each other. We cannot use these. This is where the things come. Just because there is stigma, there is discrimination, we should not be allowing this to happen. We cannot justify things, doing wrong things because these things exist in our society. That's where we are aiming at. Even if it is 5% of the population, even if it is 10% of the population, our duty is to make them feel respected, make them feel part of us. And that is where discrimination will end. That is where the stigma will end. So creating, now there are two, now marriage law will come into place. A male can marry a male, a female can marry a female, but they won't have children. Will it not increase the stigma? But if they have children, if they have got loving kids, if they've got caring kids, if they have kids who don't bully other kids, they'll become examples in society. That will go a long way in reducing the stigma, discrimination in society. It is not experimentation. I born to two parents is also an experiment. I never knew what my father would have done to me, what my mother would have done to me. We cannot base such serious things on these assumptions in life. I think this will go a long way in reducing the discrimination stigma, not the other way around.
That's a really powerful statement. The other one more argument placed before the court by the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights is that, and this even I will laugh at, it says children raised by same-sex parents will have limited exposure to the traditional gender roles, and this will impact their understanding of gender roles and gender identity, and this will limit their overall personality growth. Effectively saying that if there is a child being raised by two women or two men, they will just not understand the other gender that is missing from that equation, and so their entire upbringing will be flawed in some way. What is your response to that, Doc?
Now, I'll give you an example. A couple is married and the husband stays in Dubai. He's a poor man, he used to work in Dubai. His wife and his mother are staying in the village. He has two sons. Now, will you allow the son to stay with the mother and grandmother or not? You just tell me. Will it mean that he will start? We should not confuse gender identity with sexual orientation. Now we're getting two different things together. They're both different things. So how will it impart or impact? Society is not just one or two people. There are a lot of people involved in the society, and most of us live in a society where we are associated with each other. We are attached with each other. Parents come, grandparents come, uncles are there, friends are there. A lot of people go in shaping, and gender identity, you cannot force somebody to we cannot force anybody to change the gender or influence anybody. Gender identity is a sense of identity which a child gets. So no amount of examples beyond or outside the world can influence them. So that's something which should not be discussed also.
We have a couple of questions that have come in from our audience who's watching right now. Hemant Kumar Pradhan has said, why does the government not consider other research papers where same-sex parents have been shown to be capable as good parents and give a good life to that child? And you referred to this in the conversation in the chat we were having before we went live. You said there's a lot of research that shows that same-sex couples are capable, stable, loving parents. Is that true?
Absolutely. If you look at our statement, the whole Indian Psychiatric Society, the position statement was not based on opinions, fiction, what we believed in. It was based on science. A lot of work has gone into this paper, this position statement. And we had a whole executive council along with the office bearers and a lot of people who worked on it giving their inputs. A lot of meta-analysis were taken into consideration. A lot of papers, every paper was discussed threadbare. And then we came out with this is a statement based only on science. And again, I want to reiterate, this is what is science. Science is what actually it is, not what I think it is. So research has been done and by very, very influential people. And you cannot tell that these data has been fixed or, something has been done. These are all international papers. Just because in India, we don't have laws which have, with marriage laws, we cannot do a paper on this. But we have done a survey that, which is with us. So 90% of people are in favor of this. That yes, same-sex marriages should be allowed. A lot of people have congratulated me. A lot of people have come and told to the IPS, you have done a great job. In public forum, they tell, same-sex marriage not. But privately, they come and tell us, yes, this is what it should be.
And it's a very progressive, powerful idea. We have Koshali Samaria who has said there are people from underserved communities who are facing discrimination every day in society. They have children. So where is the argument that the LGBTQI community should not have children? But I want to also understand what this change in our laws will mean for the transgender community. The transgender community is India has had a transgender community for thousands of years. They're part of our history, they're part of our culture, but they were never allowed the comfort and the warmth of being part of our families. Will this give transgender people the rights to marry and adopt and raise children as well?
I think the things are many laws have to change after this. Because the government or whatever it is opposing is because so many things have to be changed now. And I think it needs to be changed. The transgender is an important part of a community. And they are the most stigmatized community. It really pains us when we see the trouble, the stigma, the difficulties they face, be it employment, be it acceptability, be it the way people behave with them. It really, we live in a society which needs to change, it needs to accept, and I think these laws will go a long way in helping them to also remarry and maybe adopt kids, because everybody, the rights have to be equal, be it employment, be it property rights, be it legal rights, be it hospital right to health, proper health, be it marriage, be it adoption. I think laws have to be equal for everybody. That's the only thing I learned. We have to be fair to every segment of the society. We cannot just be seen to be playing to the galleries, playing to the vote banks.
We have a statement here from Shanu Kumar that says, why don't we expand the meaning of family? It's always been used to mean blood, but families are made with something more powerful and more meaningful than blood, and that is love. And I suppose, Shanu is echoing what you were saying a little while ago. Siddharth Banerjee says, has the government considered that even if a same-sex couple cannot provide the same quality of parenting as a conventional couple, it's still better than leaving a child in an orphanage. I just want to raise a question here. There is no evidence at all to suggest that same-sex couples cannot provide the same quality of parenting as heterosexual couples. Is that true?
We have currently no evidence to say that.
What is your response to all of those people who believe that this will just cause chaos in society? Because there is a large conventional sort of conservative belief that the institution of marriage is the block on which all of society is constructed. It's the foundation. And if that changes, then that changes everything. And this is a Western concept that India is being forced down by the wokes. What's your response to that?
Marriage as an institution, if you speak, what is it? We also know that many or most, let me change it. People will start telling me things. So can you reframe your question again, last part?
Yes. So my question to you is this. There are those who believe that marriage as an institution is the foundation on which society is built. And if we change that foundation, then all of society will have chaos and it will collapse. And this is a Western concept of same-sex marriage that India is now being forced to accept.
I always tell that chaos brings order in the world. There has to be chaos to bring order, and that's very important. Whenever you need to make changes, whenever you need to make wholesome changes in the thought processes, there will be people think that what is happening is the right thing, but sometimes we need to make people think. And I think the 2018 judgment was a landmark judgment in that sense. Suddenly people started accepting. It was less like a on-off switch button, but marriage is a little more tougher thing. But what will happen is that it will save a lot of marriages actually. Many people are forced to marry people of the opposite sex when they don't want to. That destroys two families. And if they have a kid, the kid is much more stigmatized, much more discriminated. They have much more severe mental illness. But if you have people who the most important thing is communication. If you hide things, they become more bigger. If you communicate at the appropriate stages in their life, if you tell them about their roles, the way things are, the people accept. We think the society does not accept, but we are the society. Once we start accepting things, people around us, because there are a lot of people who are sitting on the fence. They want to measure which way the swing is moving, they move along with it. So if many of the people talk the right things, most of them will follow them. That's the most important thing. And I think that we need to create that atmosphere, we need to create that wave that will make the people to rethink that what they have been thinking through these ages might not have been the correct things. So that's what we need to do that. And I think you are doing a great job there.
We have another very, very good question. I'm so glad Anukruti Jain has asked this question. Doc, if parenting is at the question right now, then why is it not being encountered as to what parenting requires in terms of psychological and mental help for the child? How can this be provided by same-sex and different-sex people? So effectively, even if we are arguing that it will be disruptive, that there will be discrimination, how can we provide the psychological support to these couples and to these children in order to make sure that we lessen the impact of that chaos?
I would like to tell you that most of the heterosexual couples come to me with the question that, sir, I have been a bad parent. So it's not just the heterosexual couples or the homosexual couple. We need to have training on parenting skills. I was in talk with Norman Sartorius, one of the greatest psychiatrists ever. He was telling the Western world people take course on parenting, 6 months course. Everybody needs to take that course. The gender roles, how biased we are, how to take care of the kids, what is good, what is optimal, how much helicoptering we should do, how much we should not do, where should be the focus. We have a nation, we have everything, but we are not happy. Out of 139 countries, we come 124th or 125th. And I think it's not just, we are just focusing on that. I think we need to focus on everybody around us. And we can give them support systems where we can actually be part of them. Stigma and the discrimination and the bullying will be the most important aspects we need to take care of. And a support system has to be built. I think where the whole couples, we can have network of parents, we can sit down together, kids coming together, discussing. And maybe, somewhere, if the whole idea is passed around, and if the parents are made more sensitive to those things, and the teachers, I think these are the two main areas we need to focus on. Other parents, the heterosexual parents, and the teachers, if they are more sensitive to what is happening around them, they keep their eyes and ears open to what is, in the lift, what happens, in the corridor, what happens when the breaks are there, in the tiffin breaks, in the playground. These are the areas where the most bullying occurs. If we are more sensitive and if we can be around them, that's how we can make them much better than what we actually think they should become if these laws are passed. So I think the whole support system, only two most important things are the teachers and the other parents. And for them, we need all these things. They need to be sensitized. They need to be taken care of. You're smiling.
So I must tell you, Doc, I'm a new parent myself. My child is 1 year old, just turned one, and I would totally sign up for a course that teaches me how to do this correctly, because we have so many questions and there are so many things that you don't know if you're doing a good job. Every day you're sort of wondering, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? I'm going to mess this child up because, I'm passing on all of my baggage. So I think, to answer the people who are asking on our chat, I don't think heterosexual couples know what they're doing either. Everybody is sort of just feeling around in the dark to sort of like, it's guesswork. You're trying to do your best. And I think that's where the question is. Ibrahim has said, I'm not really sure how to understand this. He says, if all marriages are same-sex marriage, then where will the couple get the child to adopt from? I think he's being sarcastic. Ibrahim, let me point out, the legalization of same-sex marriage does not mean that all of us are going to have to be in same-sex marriages. Those people who want to will have that option. But I don't suppose, I think you were just being, you were just being mean about it, and that's up to you. Hemant Kumar says, for bullying, we need anti-bullying laws. I guess so. But it's really different from marriage equality laws. I want to point this out, though, Doctor. After the 2018 judgment, which the Supreme Court gave us, of which Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud was part of that judgment, authored a very beautiful judgment there. The Supreme Court said very clearly, going forward, the government will have to frame anti-discrimination, anti-bullying laws for the LGBTQI community, so that now they can be more widely accepted in society. Those laws have not come. So where will that come from? What will it take for us to have those anti-bullying, anti-discrimination laws for the LGBTQI community?
Basically, Justice Chandrachud sir was very, very correct, because laws will create a culture of inclusion and acceptance. And that's very, very important. So I think the next step, what he meant was the Marriage Act law. And it is, we are lucky that he is sitting over there. I hope this will go a long way in creating a sense of inclusion, acceptance, equality, and a happier society. And that's what we are praying for. Maybe tomorrow after the judgment, or maybe after the hearing is over, there will be good news for the minority people around us.
Fingers crossed.
Bullying,
there.
Bullying is not with them. I have also been bullied so much. People call me a lot of names because I work with them. I just smile. I really thank you. Somewhere it has to come. People will do that. We have to accept it and focus on what we are doing.
No, but I think what you said a little while ago was really important. You said that after the 2018 judgment, members within the community who no longer had to hide who they were and were able to have that conversation with their parents, because they're not criminals anymore. They were able to have that conversation with their colleagues. They were able to live out their truth and their identity. Instances of depression, of suicide, of self-harm, these came down drastically. And is there a possible argument that you're making right now is that if the Supreme Court legally recognizes same-sex marriage, more couples come out and get married? Maybe the urban elite will do it first, but what that will create is a precedent for everybody else to be a little more open and be a little more brave about their identity, about their relationships.
Not able to do what I want to do, speak what I want to do, or be the way I want to be is the worst thing that can happen to me in a democratic society. where 90% are more doing what they want, feeling. It's an internal thing. I can't help it. It's not that it's a choice. It's a choice. It's not a choice like having alcohol or having a swag of cannabis or marijuana. It's not like that. It's not that they're doing it to be feel very happy or excited, or it's what it is. It's like me wearing a shirt. It's like me, it comes naturally to them, and you don't allow them to do what they feel is the worst thing which we can do to them. And are they causing any harm to anybody? No, they're not causing any harm to them. They are at peace with themselves. They are at peace with themselves. And I can quote 1,000 things where heterosexual couples have kids which are, not mentally stable, having a lot of issues. And I can quote people who have adopted single parents whose kids are absolutely wonderful. So it's a different thing. The arguments don't hold state. It's just that we need a good environment, a safe environment, a caring, loving, somebody thinking about the other. Many of the parents think about themselves. If my child does not study, what will I do? What face will I show to my family? If my daughter marries somebody who is of a different caste, what face will I show? There are a lot of prejudices. It's not just about same-sex marriages also. A lot of things will come into place. So somewhere we have to think of the other person. We have to think of the society at large, not about only about ourselves. And even if my opinion or my belief systems about this whole thing might be different, but I as a psychiatrist, I as a social man have to think what is right, what is wrong, what does science tell. Finally, it is what science tells.
Rizé has written to us and said, I think what we need is health assistance for the trans community, horizontal reservations for the trans community. I agree. Grace Banu is running a campaign right now for horizontal reservations for the trans community. Health assistance is really important. And, counseling, psychological support, support that, for mental health as well. Do you believe that if the Supreme Court in its wisdom makes this decision over the next few days, the trans community will also have the opportunity to come forward and, to ask for what is rightfully theirs in terms of the support, in terms of the recognition that they need?
Absolutely. The sense of the courts will come into place now. What they want, so somewhere they will also feel better. They will also feel, taken care of. They need to be taken care of. They are important. If you look at a state like Odisha, it's a small state. We are very, very, very transgender friendly. There are a lot of reservations. They've been given jobs. You go to police stations, you'll be amazed. There are places where the trans community might have a different, areas where they are looked after. So, whole in all, the policy of inclusion is very important. The exclusive publicity should come to inclusion. It should not be that the elitist wants this, so this is happening. No, nothing like that. If they want it and there is no harm in anybody, and if it comes naturally, it's not a matter of only choice. We need to accept them. We need to include them. We are all together in it. Just because we think differently, that does not make us different in any sense.
We may be different, but we are certainly equal in the eyes of the law. And I suppose that is what the marriage equality case is about, that we may have different preferences or different sexual orientation, but at the end of the day, our constitution tells us that each one of us is equal before the law, which means that as a heterosexual person, if I have the right to get married, I have the right to leave property or share property and hold joint property with my spouse. We can adopt children. We can have joint bank accounts. We can make decisions on each other's health front. There's no reason why same-sex couples should not enjoy those same rights. That is the marriage equality question that the Supreme Court is now, in its wisdom, its 5-judge bench is going to make that decision over the next couple of days. Tomorrow, the final arguments being placed before that 5-judge bench will be live streamed by the Supreme Court, which means you can watch it at home. We'll also be putting up live updates as well, so you can track that with us. We think this is a really, really big deal. India is standing at the cusp of the possibility of great levels of equality, and I do hope that that actually does come true. I don't normally put out my opinion, but in this matter, I'm making it very clear where my opinion stands. I do believe that same-sex couples should get the same rights as everybody else, because we are all equal before the law. Doc, thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. It was a pleasure to chat with you, and I do hope that we can talk more, hopefully, if the judgment goes in the favor of equality, then that would be an excellent thing to sort of read together as well, because no doubt it will be an interesting, judgment that comes out of that 5 judgment of the Supreme Court. Professor Dr. Amrit Pattojoshi joining us right now, who has broken this down for us piece by piece, argument by argument. Now it's up to the Supreme Court. Fingers crossed from all of us. Thank you for watching. For our audience, leave us your comments. Make it a point, of course, to like, share, subscribe on our YouTube page and our Instagram page. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.
कैसा था? ठीक ठाक था?